This video is sponsored by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, build your online presence with Squarespace.
Hey everyone, I'm Ace of Clay and welcome to another sculpting video. If you're new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture. Today we're going back into the world of The Nightmare Before Christmas and I'm sculpting Jack Skellington after he falls from the sky after trying to take over Christmas. You all know that The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my all-time favorite movies, and this idea popped into my head the other day and I was just like, I've got to do that for the holiday season. This was such a fun project and I really hope you enjoy watching me sculpt him from start to finish. And then before we get started, I have brand new holiday merch. It features the creepy elf from a couple weeks ago. If you want to grab it, it will only be available for a limited time at the link in the description box below. And now without further ado, let's sculpt Jack Skellington. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to start the angel's armature by wrapping these 4 pieces of wire together. 2 of the branches, if you want to call them, are going to be for the wings, and the other 2 are her arms. And then I extended that other piece of wire to make her neck. Now we're going to start bulking out the bottom of her robe with some aluminum foil. And all the tools and materials that you see me use in this video are listed in the description box below, along with my affiliate links if you want to purchase anything. Now let's go ahead and finish bulking her out with some Super Sculpey Ultralight. And you can see there, I added some Bacon Bond to the wire just because it makes the Ultralight stick a lot easier. And once she looks pretty good, let's go ahead and bake it. And once that's baked and cooled down, it's time to start covering it in clay. For the angel, I'm using some Super Sculpey Original. Just want to cover the entire thing in clay and start sculpting her details. For the folds in her robe, I'm going to use some snakes of clay to create those. Just adding those to the surface and then blending them in. Now because I don't want to add any more bulk to the robe, I'm just going to use this gouging tool to create the rest of the wrinkles. And after I remove the clay with this tool, I smooth out the edges of it so it's not just a, cut in the middle of the sculpture. It's got to look like fabric. Once the robe looks pretty good, it's time to start creating her arms, brushing on some Bacon Bond first so my clay sticks. Super Sculpey has a really hard time sticking to this brushed aluminum wire that I have, so the Bacon Bond really helps. And in my opinion, it works even better than wire wrapping. Once the arm looks pretty good, let's pop on her sleeve. And then we'll create the other arm off camera. Now it's time for her wings. I'm going to cut the wing shape out of this flat piece of clay that I got by rolling the clay through my pasta maker on the thickest setting, and then I'm going to repeat this step 3 more times so I have the front and back of each wing. And using my gouging tool, we're going to create the wing details. And for a nice stone texture, let's dab on this brush. Now I just want to add another piece of wire to each wing armature to support the wings so they don't droop in the oven. And then to attach them, I'm of course going to use some Bacon Bond, brush that on nice and evenly, and then I'm going to stick it onto the back of the wire and then meet it in the front with the other half of the wing. Looks pretty good, let's do it again. Now it's time to start her head. She has a pretty generic looking female face, so we're just gonna give her something generic looking. And I sculpted her nose completely out of frame, which is why you can see it's already done here. But let's go ahead and make her eyes and mouth. Now with a little bit of Bacon Bond, let's stick on her head. and then finish her off with some more of that stone texture. And then we're going to pop her in the oven, pre-bake her. And once she's baked and cooled down, let's go ahead and add her hair. I just want to block out all the shapes first, then blend them in, and then we will go in and with our texture. And using this tool, I'm just gliding it along the surface here and there to create the nice waves in her hair. Now to create the book that she's holding, I'm going to embed this piece of cardboard in between 2 sheets of clay, securing it with some bacon bond. This is where Jack is eventually going to sit. After securing the edges, I'm just going to press them on my surface to get them nice and flat. And then we're going to bend our book into shape. And then we can start adding the details like the cover and the pages. And let's give it a quick stone texture. And we're going to attach it with some bacon bond to her arms. And then once this is on, we're going to work on her hands. Her hands are fairly simple from pictures that I've seen and actually watching the scene 50 times. They're just these sort of mitten hands, so we're just going to pop those on real quick. And now it's time for the sponsor. Be right back. Alright, now before we get into the rest of the video, let's take a second to talk about our sponsor, Squarespace. Whether you're a big business, a small business, a freelance designer, or sculptor like me, Squarespace has everything you need to showcase your brand, sell your products, and more. I've been using Squarespace for over 3 years now, even before they started sponsoring me, and I could not be happier with my experience. Their products are so streamlined and so easy to use that managing my website, aceofclay.com, is truly a breeze. Some of my favorite features include the portfolios and galleries. In my line of work, I have to show everything that I make to the world, and Squarespace's beautiful portfolios allow me to do just that. I even opened my online store where I sell stickers, posters, even original sculpts, and Squarespace makes everything so easy. I can track my inventory, even print shipping labels, I get notifications when I get a sale, and everything I need is right there in the platform. You can even sell digital downloads. They really have everything you need to start selling online. And at this day and age, if you're an online business, you've got to have a social media presence, and Squarespace allows you to integrate all your social media into any page of your website. So if everything I said sounds good, head on over to squarespace.com, start a free trial, and when you're ready to go live, go to squarespace.com/aceofclay to save 10% on your purchase of a website or domain using my code aceofclay. Thanks again, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. Now back to our sculpture. Now let's start Jack. To create Jack's super skinny frame, we're going to use some super skinny wire. Just want to create both halves and then connect them with another piece of wire, along with another piece of wire for the neck that is in there. And then once that's on, looks like this. Nice little praying mantis type of thing going on here. Now I'm going to go ahead and bulk out that torso with some aluminum foil and then start covering it in clay. To sculpt Jack, I'm using some Clay Sculpt in medium firm. I'm using Clay because it stays flexible after you bake it. After we've got his torso shaped out and his little neck added, let's start adding the details for his costume, starting with the fur around his neck, and then we're going to start pressing in some rips on his chest. Now let's start his limbs. I'm going to roll out some snakes of clay and press them onto the wire. And clay has a pretty pleasant tackiness to it, so I don't have to brush the wire with bacon bond before I add the clay. Alright, once all his limbs are covered, it's time to figure out what his final position is going to be. But it doesn't have to be that final, because after this is baked, I can still pose him because the cosplay is flexible. So it's kind of like a little stop motion puppet. Now let's stick on his tiny little feet. Now it's time for his head. I'm just going to create the basic head shape, which is kind of egg-shaped when you look really closely, and his head shape does kind of change with his facial expressions. So like his forehead will be more pointed sometimes when he's making a certain face, or like his jaw will be like super big. You have to pay attention to those variances because it's not just a ball. After pressing out his eye sockets, it's time to add a little nasal bone. And let's press out his nostrils or nose holes. And I want to give him a sad oohing expression, so we're just going to press out his mouth with a couple ball styluses, give him a tiny little lip, and then we'll add the teeth on the side. Once his face looks pretty good, I'm going to pop on his head with a little bit of bacon bond, and he'll be good to go. Now for all the tattered pieces of fabric, I of course am using cosplay, and I rolled it through my pasta maker on the thinnest setting. It's super, 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 super thin. Now for some final details like his belt. Now for his hands, let's make this piece first. And then to create the fingers, I just rolled a piece of wire into each of them so they're a little secure and I can pose them. And then I'm just poking them into that first piece. And there we go. Hand number 1 is done. And for the final sculpting step, I just want to brush the surface with clay softener to remove all the fingerprints and make them nice and smooth. Now let's bake them. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time for paint. For this project, I'm using Folk Art brand matte acrylics. Let's start with the angel. Let's paint her completely gray, and then she can sit in the corner and dry while I'm painting Jack. Alright, let's start with Jack's face and hands first with this nice titanium white. Gonna do a few coats of this. And for his tattered Santa coat, I mixed some Imperial Red with some pure black and dark green to get this nice bloody shade. And I can't help but feel bad for Jack during this painting process because I have him in so many different positions. Now I'm going to go in and paint all the black areas, like the ribs on his chest and his feet, and then all of the exposed parts of his suit. And to finish off the coat, I'm just going to dry brush some black onto the tips of the rips and here and there just to make them look a little scorched. Now I just very carefully want to go in and paint all of the details on his face, like his eye sockets, his nostrils, his mouth, and so on and so forth. Now using some watered down black, I'm just painting the details on his hands. And with some titanium white, I'm going to go in with my smallest paintbrush and paint all of those tiny little pinstripes on his suit. And after this, Jack is done, so let's go back to the angel after we see what it's going to look like, of course. There we go, very nice. Now I'm going to take some watered down black, get it into all of those folds and wrinkles on the robes, and then do some antiquing on her face and the book. And for the final step, I'm going to dry brush some lighter gray onto the surface to bring out all her details and make her look even more like stone. And once she's done, it's time to attach Jack with some Loctite super glue. Now say it with me. And he's done! My sculpture of Jack Skellington in his Santa outfit after he falls from the sky is complete. Let me know what you think of him in the comments. So I always thought I would never be able to sculpt Jack Skellington again because like I already sculpted him over there, but I didn't think of making different scenes from the movie, and this is one of my favorite scenes. Honestly, every scene in the movie is one of my favorite scenes, but anyway, I thought this one was cool and very appropriate for the holidays. So let me know what you think of it in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Don't forget to check out my creepy elf merch. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ace of Clay, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.